8 times 1 minute on, 1 minute off, averaging 5:26 per mile in the Zoom Fly 3s on this morning's fartlek, the first real workout of the cross-country season, even though I won't be competing in any meets. It's a simple workout that's not too demanding or tiring, which makes it great for doing either at the start of a training block like we're doing, or at the end when you're tapering. Last year, for the first cross-country workout, I got a little too ahead of myself and it was too difficult and too demanding, so I've definitely learned since then for this season. So when should you start doing workouts for your cross-country season? I remember in high school we would start doing them in like the middle of June because we had a summer running camp that started in June and went all throughout the summer up until the school year started, until the official cross-country season started. And so as soon as we started meeting for that camp, we started doing workouts every single week, a couple times a week. And then when I got to college, when I joined the club, we started our official workouts in middle to late July, just like today. So I guess it kind of depends on the team. It depends on the coach. I think a lot of high schools do it the way that I experienced in high school, where you have a summer camp and most likely you're doing workouts at least a couple of times throughout the week, throughout the whole summer. Probably some weeks are different. Obviously, it's not going to be the exact same every single week. But like I said, that's what we did. And I think colleges are mostly similar from what I've seen from some D3 or D1 athletes. Their training plan and their schedule over the summer, I think a lot of times they're either receiving workouts from their coach to do on their own and kind of getting some guidelines on the pacing and the details of the workout, or they're actually meeting with their team and they're at school doing the workouts with at least most of the team throughout a certain period over the summer. I don't think it's the whole summer, talking to some D1 and D3 athletes that I know, but at least for part of the summer, not including this summer since it's so different with COVID, but for the most part, I think that's how it works. So I don't think there's any really right answer. The approach that I take, following the coach before me for the club, of starting workouts in middle to late July, is more of just kind of a caution because if you get too ahead of yourself over the summer, especially early in the summer, you don't want to be in the best shape of your life in June, because by the time the season rolls around, you're just going to burn out. So the approach that I take of starting it later in the summer is just because I hold the belief of kind of training through the early season so that you can peak for the end of the season. So for us, that's club nationals. For high schoolers, that's state, or maybe nationals if they go to the Nike national meet. For most college teams, that's either their conference meet or maybe regionals or nationals. So it depends for every team. But I like the idea that I learned in high school from my coach of training through the season, not putting all the weight and hoping for your best results in the first or the second meet of the season, because that's not the goal of the season. The goal of the season is to do the best that you can at the end of the season at that big meet. So that's kind of why I like the idea of starting workouts later in the summer. And by that I mean like real workouts. So I've been doing steady runs for a couple of months now. As soon as I started my real summer training on June 1st, I was trying to do at least 1 or 2 steady runs a week, and those helped to build up that aerobic base that is obviously very important for cross country. When you hear people talking about the base, that you build it early on. That's the first thing you build, and then as the summer goes on and as the season goes on, you start to fine tune the base that you already built. A great analogy that I heard is like base building is collecting all the clay that you can, and then later in the season when you're fine tuning, that's when you're actually sculpting the sculpture out of the clay. So I don't know, that kind of makes sense to me when I think about it. Base training is just trying to get in, traditionally it's running all the miles that you can, being careful, trying not to get injured. But when I was doing all the steady runs, that's kind of what I was focusing on. getting my heart rate elevated a little bit, going up tempo, but not going too fast, not going tempo or threshold pace just yet. I think that should be done later in the summer, closer to when the season starts. But steady runs are a really great way to get moving faster. Even just doing that is just breaking up the monotonous easy runs that can get pretty boring over the summer if you're just doing, especially if you're doing doubles and you're hitting higher mileage. The easy runs just start to get pretty boring, especially if you're running alone. So steady runs were a good way for me, at least, to break up those kind of boring easy runs and at the same time build that aerobic base that is so important. Now, like I said, in high school we started doing workouts over the summer, early in the summer, but I was also doing less mileage overall than I am now. The workouts weren't always very demanding. You know, we would have hard workouts, but not every single workout was going all the way in, trying your hardest, completely exhausting yourself, because my coach was very smart and he knew that there's a likely chance that 3 months, 4 months down the road, you could just end up burning out because you exhausted yourself already. If you do take that approach of doing workouts earlier, if you're like a high schooler who's just following your coach and that's what you're doing, it's by no means a bad strategy or training plan. Like I said, I did that in high school and I ran pretty well. But I think it's just important to know when to take a down day, or taking a down week every 4 weeks, every 3 weeks or so, and maybe scaling it down at the end of the summer or when school starts again. Once you're walking around for however long throughout the day, being on your feet more, and that's just going to be more exhausting for you. So it's almost needed to scale back the training. You can't just stay at 70 miles a week for 5 months. Some people can, but it just depends on who you are, because you don't want to get injured from starting workouts too early, is the main point that I'm saying. So we're starting workouts. Today was the first workout, like I said, and basically from now until the end of the altered season, because we'll be doing a few time trials and not actually competing in meets. So we most likely will not even have a nationals meet. It's still not official yet, but it's basically official because I think there's no way that it's going to happen. And I think even if it would happen, our club would not be going to it just to be safe. So for this season, we're not actually looking towards nationals. We're just looking at doing the best we can in the time trials that we're going to be holding. So it is different. We've had to deal with everything going on and changing our entire life around that right now, the last few months and for the foreseeable future. So it is different this season, but we're still planning on, at least I'm still planning the training plan around peaking towards the end of what would normally be the season, what would normally be the time to peak for nationals. And so we're starting workouts now, and we'll be doing basically 2 workouts every single week, ramping up in intensity as the season goes on, and a final taper towards the end of the season, so that hopefully we can do our best at those time trials. So those are my thoughts on starting cross-country workouts. I'm by no means an expert or a very experienced veteran coach. These are just some of the thoughts that I've picked up from my high school coach, who is a very great coach, and my experience so far in college, and just my experience running cross-country over the last 8 years. So those are my thoughts. I hope you enjoyed. Thanks for watching the video, and I'll see you in the next one.